remembering Charlie Whiting and the amazing figure that he was for the sport, were there specific things about his style that you're still looking to represent when you go and talk about the sporting regulations? What did Charlie Whiting teach you, I suppose, is the question.
Well, Charlie was your ultimate poacher turned gamekeeper. You know, right. He worked in Formula One in the era at Brabham where rules were interpreted creatively. I used to love, over a glass of wine and a dinner, hearing about various little things that they got away with back in the 80s. But Charlie had the respect. He was consistent in his decision making, consistent in the way he dealt with people across the board. He knew when to tell you to shut up, and when you needed an arm around you. He was an extraordinary man in that respect, and I think the FIA were slow to realise just what a big pair of shoes that would be to fill. And I think I think Michael, with the right support, is more than capable of doing that. On a personal level, he's entirely a really nice guy with no edge to him at all, and who listens and tries to do the very best that he can. But in Charlie, we lost a behemoth of the sport, and there's not a day goes by that I don't miss the ability to call him, bounce some ideas off of him, or work with him on some new sporting regulations.
Well, that's really powerful. And I think for people listening, one resource that maybe you could look at to understand the way Charlie Whiting was playing is that there are some clips from driver briefings. So when all the teams, drivers come together and they were talking to Charlie, and I think it was 2017, they put them out. But they would film some of the clips from the driver briefings, and the way in which he's able to, drivers will put their hand up and they'll say, oh, he cut turn 3, he should have been given a penalty, why didn't he give a penalty? Or little complaints like that. The way in which he was able to create a room that felt sort of free and fair, even though all the different people in the room were trying to beat each other and trying to take advantage away or give advantage in a certain way. Like you talked about management, that skill of managing 20 drivers that all are trying to get one over on another is amazing, and such a specialized task. And the outcome and the culture within the sport of the teams working together. Do you think that is largely his doing?
Yeah, and I miss, so I'm a pretty calm person. I'm pretty calm on the pit wall during the race. There's times where I'm really not calm. Yeah. And I can remember several times going into his office when I was livid and he said, shut the door and shut up and sit down. Yeah. And you need that from time to time, Yeah. I'm not sure I'd have the right reaction if Michael said that to me.
No.
But that comes about, I guess that comes from the person you're dealing with. And I learned a lot. Look, we learned a lot from people. He mentored me. A lot of the other team managers at the time as well, Dave Ryan, who was a powerhouse at McLaren for 30, 40 years. People like Stefano Domenicali, who was doing my job at Ferrari back then. It was very much a case of use your mouth, ears and eyes in proportion. And I learned a tremendous amount from those guys, and they were, they helped form the manager that I am now, learning from, everything was good. So learning from the positives and the negatives, learning from various managers as you go through the business that you work for, and you build up your position of the person that you want to be. And I think very difficult for the FIA to fill that with one role. And it looks like the new president is taking this very, very seriously and looking to put support in exactly where it's needed.
So do you feel like that those would really be the true main lessons from the way in which the finale ended up, in that need for maybe just more simplification, more clearness, and less, that decision to initially to say don't let the lap cars past, even though they do normally go past, and then to get that and be, well, hold on a minute, we should let the lap cars past, that maybe should just be simplified, and the rules for that to be clearer than they need to be, or than they ended up being in that moment. Do you think that could be the main outcome of the ongoing investigation at the moment, and just clearing up some of the rules, or what would you like the outcome to be, maybe?
Right, I don't want to sound like Boris Johnson and say I'm waiting for a certain report to come through, but I think it's
true. I'll cut that bit out.
It is really important that the FIA do their investigation, and they'll work with the teams on that investigation, and that we should all follow whatever the outcome of that investigation is.
Yeah, so that's just something that is going to be shared, between every team. It's just going to be a sort of new way of conducting race direction, you think, or wait and see what they like to change, I suppose.
Well, I think there's if we look broad brush at race direction and the very, very difficult role that the race director and the stewards have, and it is difficult. If we look at that and we talk about consistency of steward decisions, consistency across the board, like people who watch football would like to see from referees, and
absolutely,
it's not always the case. Of course, we'd all love it to be very, very clear. We've had this great overarching philosophy of let them race, but let them race is a philosophy. You've then got the black and white of the regulations, which is often very prescribed in terms of what penalty, or there's no wriggle room in it at all. And I think these are the areas of the sport that needs to come from the very top, needs to come from the World Motorsport Council, need to say, here are the principles by which we're going racing. And then it's up to the FIA and the teams to work together to ensure a consistent set of sporting regulations.